wake up in the morning, of course my first thought is not, or it's dying. We all have our daily problems. It's hard to stress about bees and pollen. So I decided to write you a song for the mornings, a catchy tune that'll stay stuck in your head maybe, to start the day thinking of planet Earth safety. It's not the end of the world, it's not a cause without hope, but we need to act now. Turn Earth's frown upside down. We need to treat out your planet like we would our family. Yes, climate change is real. Yes, it is a big deal. So let's make it right. It's not about being perfect. Even the littlest of steps makes it worth it. Maybe cut back on bats and no carnivore diet. And I know some steps are harder too, but think of it as a big fat I love you. Gotta cut her some slack, 'cause in the end she's all we've got. Doesn't it sound great to reimagine our future? No floods or fires, no more droughts, no more glaciers melting. So with hope, let's unite and write a better ending. It's not the end of the world, it's not a cause without hope, but we need to act now. Turn Earth's frown upside down. We need to treat out your planet like we would our family. Yes, climate change is real. Yes, it is a big deal. So let's make it right. It's not the end of the world, it's not a cause without hope, but we need to act now. Turn Earth's frown upside down. We need to treat out your planet like we would our family. Yes, climate change is real. Yes, it is a big deal. It's not the end of the world, it's not a cause without hope, but we need to act now. Turn Earth's frown upside down. We need to treat our dear planet like we would our family. Yes, climate change is real. Yes, it is a big deal. So let's make it right.
Thank you, Maya, for this incredible performance to kick off our day. What a perfect way to set the tone as we dive into day 3 of the Nature for Life Hub. Today, we're reimagining our relationship with nature, looking at how it supports every aspect of our lives. We'll explore how nature is not just something we protect, but our partner in creating a sustainable and equitable future. Let's start with a video from our partners Nature for All to help us get into the mindset for reimagining our connection with nature. That video really hit home. Nature is at the heart of everything, including the food we eat. Let's dive into how nature underpins every aspect of our food security and how we can let it keep doing what it does best, feeding the world.
Food security is essential for human well-being and development. Nature is the foundation of our global food systems. Healthy ecosystems ensure healthy and productive food systems for all. About 40% of all agricultural land is degraded. Conventional agricultural practices around the world continue to contribute to land degradation. Harm pollinators essential for food production exacerbate our climate crisis and deepen inequality. Nature loss and climate change erode the stability of our food systems and place the livelihoods of hundreds of millions of people at risk. Our financial systems are at the heart of our food crisis. We invest $700 billion every year in subsidies that harm nature and erode our food security. Nature and diversity is the basis of food security. Healthy ecosystems ensure a ready supply of water for agriculture. Healthy soils absorb and regulate water, reduce the need for pesticides and fertilizers, and increase nutrition. Diverse seeds and food practices, including indigenous food systems, are our best tools for adapting to climate change. It's time for a reset on food security and nature. We must start by rethinking the role of nature as a basis for all food security. We must value the essential services provided by nature and include nature as an ally in food security plans. We must safeguard wild crop relatives and maintain the rich diversity of seed varieties as a safeguard against climate change. We must safeguard pollinator habitat and eliminate pesticides that harm pollinators. We must restore degraded agricultural lands and accelerate regenerative agriculture and agroforestry. We must phase out harmful agriculture subsidies and repurpose them towards sustainable, just agricultural practices. Nature is the bedrock of our food security. By protecting and restoring nature and shifting to regenerative practices, we can ensure a sustainable and secure food supply for all.
Nature is key to our food, but the way we're producing it is taking a toll on the planet. It's time to rethink how we farm and move towards practices that let nature thrive. Let's look at a couple of examples, from how we source ingredients to something many of us enjoy daily: coffee.
White collar never fit clean on me. Only thing nice is the jeans on me. Playing dirty, trying to switch on me. Only thing pretty is the
Wherefore art thou from?
Where's it going?
rugged wrist.
What is it?
Is it in season?
How far has this traveled?
Is that happy?
You sure you need it?
As chefs, we ask questions about food.
I've been out here wildin'. Angel on my shoulder saying bout it.
Why so much plastic?
We sit between the food you eat
And how it gets to you.
I swear to God, if my
So we're getting together,
From all countries.
all parts of the industry.
all walks of life.
To bring positive change to the kitchen.
We're talking soil,
Carbon.
waste,
Diversity,
Biodiversity.
Water.
accessibility.
and what have we got to say for ourselves?
Plenty.
This is the Chef's Manifesto.
I've been out here wildin'.
Those videos really got me thinking how we grow and produce food is deeply connected to the health of our planet. And if we're going to make a real impact, we need to change how we approach food production. Up next, Andrew Bovarnik from UNDP and Carmen Torres from UNEP will discuss how we could shift to systems that support both nature and food security while building resilience against climate challenges. As you listen, think about this. What's one small change you could make in how you source or consume food that would better support nature? Share your ideas in the chat. Over to you, Miguel.
Thanks, Victoria. Hello, everyone. I'm Miguel, your host for today's Dialogues. Our first conversation is on transforming our food systems. We have two incredible guests to help us explore this topic. Carmen Torres from UNEP and Andrew Bovarnik from UNDP. Remember, as we go along, feel free to drop your questions in the chat, and I'll pass them along to our speakers. Carmen, let's start with you. What do we mean when we talk about transforming our food systems? And why is this such a critical issue for the world right now?
When we talk about transforming our food systems, we are referring to a fundamental change in the way we produce, distribute, and consume food. Essentially, we need to move away from our current linear models, which are often unsustainable, and adopt circular, nature-positive, and climate-resilient approaches. This transformation is crucial because our current food systems are major contributors to what we call the triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. For instance, food systems account for over 30% of global greenhouse gas emissions, and they are also a leading cause of deforestation, habitat loss, and they generate substantial amount of waste and pollution. Our food systems have a deep impact on our health, our environment, and our economies. They affect everything from the availability and quality of food to the stability of our ecosystems and climate. At UNEP, we aim to support food systems that are sustainable, equitable, and resilient. Food systems that ensure healthy food for everyone while also protecting our ecosystems. By adopting what we call a nature-positive approach, we ensure that food systems contribute to biodiversity conservation, climate stability, and pollution reduction, fostering a healthy planet and healthy people.
Thanks, Carmen. This really sets the stage for why this transformation is so essential. I love how you highlight the deep connection between food systems and our broader environmental challenges. Andrew, let's hear from you. What is UNDP's role in transforming our food systems? And how does it fit into the bigger picture of sustainable development?
So UNDP, of course, is responsible for and central to the achievement of all the SDGs. And critical to achieving SDGs is the transformation of food systems. It is amazing how food systems are central to everything that we do in the world. Agriculture, fueling rural development, driving biodiversity loss, changing land use, contributing to climate change, and of course also with so many positives in terms of contributing to rural livelihoods and of course healthy diets. So UNDP, with all of its work across all of its areas, has always focused on food systems. It just hasn't been called that way. Our work on governance, on strengthening ministries, building capacity in countries, working on gender, working on climate, all include support to improving food systems, whether it is empowering female farmers, strengthening ministries of agriculture and environment to better cooperate, or working on reducing emissions from agriculture and food systems. It's prevalent across all of our work, and we have billions of dollars of technical assistance supporting countries all around the world to improve food systems. But as we all know, the food systems, as the Secretary General of the UN says, are broken. Business as usual is not working. We have to find ways to radically evolve and transform our current food systems so that we produce food, eat food in a manner that is fit for purpose for planet and people. And what this means is we really need to be clear about what are the key barriers and systemic areas of resistance for the change we are all trying to support. And this is where UNDP really comes in.
Andrew, it's fascinating to hear how central food systems are to so many development goals. Your point about needing to radically evolve our approach really highlights the scale of the challenge. Carmen, UNEP has been doing a lot of work on sustainable food systems. Could you share more about the key pathways to achieving a nature-positive food transformation?
To achieve a nature-positive food transformation, we need to focus on several key pathways. First, nature-positive and climate-resilient agriculture is crucial. This involves transitioning to farming practices that restore and regenerate ecosystems while enhancing climate resilience. For example, adopting agroecological methods and organic farming improves soil health and water retention and reduces reliance on synthetic fertilizers and pesticides. This not only cuts down on pollution, but also supports beneficial organisms like pollinators. Next, we should consider circular food systems. Moving from a linear model of take, make, dispose to circular approaches help minimize waste and maximize resource efficiency. This involves improving waste management, promoting food recovery, and reusing byproducts. For instance, composting food waste returns valuable nutrients to the soil, reducing the need for chemical fertilizers. But this also requires collective efforts from food businesses, retailers, and consumers to prevent waste to begin with. Additionally, supporting local and diverse diets is important. Promoting diets that are diverse and locally sourced reduces reliance on monocultures and long-distance transportation. This can enhance food sovereignty and support also local economies while reducing the environmental impact associated with large-scale industrial agriculture and food processing. For instance, supporting urban and peri-urban agriculture can help by fostering local food production and increasing access to fresh produce. Finally, policy and governance play a key role. Strengthening policies and governance frameworks that support nature-positive food systems is essential. This includes enforcing regulations that protect natural habitats and incentivizing sustainable practices. Integrating food and environmental policy frameworks is crucial for enhancing synergies and also minimizing trade-offs. By focusing on these pathways, we aim to create food systems that not only meet human needs, but also positively impact the environment. At UNEP, we have a strategy called the One UNEP Sustainable Food System Strategy, which actually emphasizes these approaches, leveraging both international agreements and local actions to drive systemic change and enhance nature.
I love how you break that down, Carmen. It's exciting to think about how these nature-positive approaches can really shape our food systems. Andrew, what about the barriers? What are the biggest challenges to making this transformation happen?
We've identified a few key levers of change, areas that I call blind spots, areas that, in general, technical assistance projects do not really tend to look at, perhaps because they're too complicated, perhaps because we believe that they're out of our control, but I think are absolutely fundamental to help us dig deep and find ways to catalyze the structural changes we really need. And two that I really want to mention, one is culture, our mindsets, our personal values that we bring in our decision-making, or governments and policymakers bring in their decision-making, or farmers bring in their decision-making, agribusiness bring in their decision-making. When we are making investment policy, production decisions about the way we produce food, what are the values we are looking at? Are we driven by profit and extraction, or are we using values about harmony with nature, about empowering local farmers, about ensuring healthy diets. So much of the work that goes on and the systems in place are based upon previous mindsets which were all about maximizing production and trade. And it's time to change those mindsets. So that, for me, is a key lever. How we can possibly train, support, build awareness around changing mindsets and values. And another key one, I think, is how decisions really are made. And this is about the power and power dynamics that are going on all the time behind the scenes, and the power asymmetries that we see. Again, big business have so much more power in influencing decisions than smallholder farmers. How do we empower the voices of youth, of women, of smallholder farmers, of the planet in making decisions that are key for the future of our food systems? So again, power dynamics are areas that my team and UNDP were looking at, how we can bring more awareness about power and resistance to change to the work that everyone is valiantly doing to try to improve food systems. And maybe just a third one, of course, we're all very aware of it, and many people are working on it, but how do we enhance and support more effective collaboration and connection between all the important stakeholders in a food system? How do we build that trust between the farmers, the municipalities, the provincial governments, the ministries of environment, of agriculture, of infrastructure, of finance, with the agribusiness and all the way to the consumers? How can we help all of these stakeholders understand their needs and agendas and work together to really co-create solutions that work? So effective collaboration for me is a third lever that we really need to look at. And if we can take all of this and help connect the food systems to the important work going on around climate change, around biodiversity, we really have a chance to put healthy food systems on the agenda for a better future.
Andrew, those are such important points. It's eye-opening to hear about the role that cultural values and power dynamics play in this space. Now, let's look ahead. Carmen and Andrew, I'd love to hear from both of you. Where do you think food systems will be in 5 years? Carmen, let's start with you.
Over the next 5 years, only collaborative efforts can lead to substantial progress in transforming food systems. Enhanced policy implementation is an area where we can expect significant progress. We can anticipate increased adoption and enforcement of policies that support sustainable food systems. UNEP partners are working to integrate environmental considerations into food systems governance and vice versa. For instance, we support the integration of environmental components in the country's national pathways for food systems transformation. And at the same time, we also support the integration of food elements in countries' environmental policies and initiatives, such as countries' NDCs, national determined contributions, and countries' NDSAs, national biodiversity strategies and action plans. Another key area is the accelerated adoption of sustainable practices. We can drive significant reductions in environmental impacts by focusing on major agribusinesses and high-impact value chains. This includes advancing circular food systems, preventing waste, and adopting sustainable procurement and regenerative practices. Strengthening partnerships with private sector, governments, and civil society to scale up successful models and drive collective action is crucial. We can also make notable strides in food waste reduction and circularity. Promoting circular economy approaches such as redistributing surplus food and promoting composting will help halve food waste and reduce pollution. Our strategies include engaging the retail and hospitality sectors, including food waste education in schools, and campaigning in key communication channels for increased awareness. Lastly, strengthened data and transparency will continue to play a crucial role. Improved data collection has already enhanced public awareness and transparency in food systems, and will continue to do so while also supporting better decision-making and accountability.
That sounds like a solid plan, Carmen. Now, Andrew, how about you? What do you hope we can accomplish in 5 years?
The years ahead will be difficult, and we'll have to see how quickly we can help accelerate change at the global level, at the country level, with regard to our thinking and action. And I think for me, what will be most important over these years to come is to put these levers of change more centrally in all of our thinking, planning, and collaboration. Because if we really address and consider and are able to tackle and work towards changing power dynamics, changing mindsets and values, we will be making a huge contribution and leap towards really transforming food systems. And this is what we need. We need to evolve over the next 5 years away from incremental change, from a project here or a project there that is making important impacts, but at a local level, to really getting a grip and getting a handle on these really important levers of change that I believe have been inadequately addressed up until now. So if in 5 years, we're all talking about power and talking about mindsets and really figuring out how to incorporate them into support, into interventions, into policy making, and into our food system, we will be well on our way to making the changes we need for this planet and people in years to come.
I really appreciate those insights, Andrew. It's clear that if we address these foundational issues, we'll see a much bigger impact. Thank you both, Carmen and Andrew, for sharing your thoughts today. And to our audience, thank you for being part of this important dialogue. Keep those questions coming. And now, back to you, Victoria.
Thank you, Carmen and Andrew, for such an insightful discussion. As we reflect on what's been shared, think about the changes you can make in your daily choices. Whether it's reducing food waste or supporting local sustainable options, small steps can drive big change. We'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas in the chat. Now let's take a moment to immerse ourselves in something truly special. Up next, we have Snow Raven, a mesmerizing artist from the remote Republic of Sakha in Siberia. Snow Raven's voice is an instrument of nature itself, inspired by the language of birds and animals and deeply rooted in her Sakha culture. Let's enjoy this captivating performance. Wow, what an incredible performance! Snow Raven's connection to nature through her voice is truly mesmerizing. It reminds me of the deep bond between people and the natural world. It's a bond we need to protect and nurture, especially when it comes to one of our most precious resources, water. Let's take a look at how healthy ecosystems can help secure clean water for all of us.
Water is essential for all life on Earth. Healthy, natural ecosystems are vital for maintaining clean and abundant water supplies and safeguarding national and global water security. But we are facing a global water crisis. The loss and degradation of natural systems, especially forests and wetlands, are disrupting our global water cycle.
We have broken the global water cycle by deforestation, by mismanagement of our water resources for decades.
Climate change is making things worse.
As we're seeing climate change impacts increasing, we're also seeing a very negative cycle where we're seeing global warming leading also to the loss of biodiversity and then also impacting precipitation, which then ends up resulting in more losses. And it's going to make the future for all of us much more difficult.
Degradation of the ecosystems that underpin our water security is endangering our very future. By 2030, half of all people will live in water-scarce areas, and 1.6 billion people will lack safe drinking water. We must change course. One solution to our global water crisis lies in nature. Healthy forests and wetlands act as natural water filters, removing pollutants and sediments. They also recharge the aquifers that we depend upon in cities and on farms. Nature-based solutions for water security are not only effective, they are also cost-effective. Protecting natural ecosystems can secure water sources for more than 2,000 of the world's largest cities for less than $2 per person per year. Investing in healthy ecosystems can be a catalyst for peace, especially in the 50 countries most at risk of water-related conflict. It can also accelerate sustainable development for girls and women and improve health outcomes around the globe. We need to take action now. We must begin by recognizing the true value of natural ecosystems in providing humanity with clean water. We must protect, restore, and sustainably manage the natural ecosystems that are critical for maintaining water flows. And we must invest public and private funds in nature-based solutions that maintain the health of these essential ecosystems. Nature is our best ally for water security. By working together to protect, restore, and finance nature, we can secure clean and abundant water for future generations.
The global water crisis we just explored shows how deeply interconnected water security and healthy ecosystems are. Now let's look at a real-world solution in Kenya, where the Upper Tana Nairobi Water Fund is tackling water challenges head-on.
Touching the soil, I feel like I'm touching life.
There's a delicate balance between soil and water for the 300,000 small-scale farmers growing coffee, tea, and bananas in Kenya's Tana River watershed. For decades, forests on steep hillsides have been slowly converted to agriculture. Reduced soil productivity from erosion and competition for space have forced farmers onto steeper and steeper slopes. Now during the rainy season, soil is quickly washed into the Tana River, reducing the productivity of farmland and clogging water distribution and power generation facilities with sediment. But these issues don't remain in the watershed. The Tana River supplies drinking water to more than 9 million people, including 4 million people downstream in the capital city of Nairobi. With an unreliable water supply, many people are forced to buy jerry cans of water just to have enough to drink, cook, and wash. Water security will only become more challenging as climate change brings increasingly unpredictable rainfall and the city's population continues to climb. That's why the Nature Conservancy is bringing diverse partners together to solve these challenges through the Upper Tana Nairobi Water Fund. Water funds are founded on the principle that it's cheaper to prevent problems at the source than it is to address them further downstream. Urban water users invest in upstream watershed conservation for the benefit of farmers, businesses, and Kenyans throughout the region. In the Upper Tana watershed, the Nature Conservancy and its partners are working with more than 25,000 farmers and are on course to reach 50,000 farmers by 2022. We are providing the skills, training, and resources they need to conserve water, reduce soil runoff, and improve productivity. The goal is to improve livelihoods, conserve habitat, and have more water flowing into Nairobi each day. Jane Kabugi, for instance, has learned how to dig trenches and plant napier grass to prevent soil runoff on her steep hillside farm. Stanley Kamenju has installed a system to collect and store rainwater for irrigation. Now he can grow and sell vegetables in the dry season when he can fetch a higher price.
We can say now we are food secure using the water pans given to us by TNC. So we are very grateful for that. We are very stable farmers now. Our lives have been transformed.
While the Nairobi Water Fund is the first of its kind in Africa, it builds on the expertise Nature Conservancy scientists have gained from designing more than 40 water funds around the world. The Upper Tana Nairobi Water Fund can now serve as a model to leaders across the continent as they look for solutions to growing challenges such as water scarcity, population growth, and climate change. By investing in and protecting our sources of water, we can make a lasting difference for people and nature in Kenya and across Africa.
What a powerful example of how nature-based solutions can transform water security for entire regions. Now let's move on to a more in-depth conversation on the importance of protecting and restoring ecosystems for water security. I'm thrilled to welcome Nabia Oposuama from the Nature Conservancy and Diego Olarte from UNDP Colombia. Nabia and Diego, welcome to the Nature for Life Hub. Miguel, take it away.
Thanks, Victoria. It's great to be back with everyone. I'm excited to welcome both of you, Nabia and Diego, to the Nature for Life Hub. Let's dive right in. Nabia, could you start us off by explaining why protecting and restoring nature is so crucial for maintaining water security?
Water security is really critical for so many things that we need as people and also for nature. And our economies in cities, ensuring that we have a consistent supply of good quality water throughout the year and whenever we need it. And really important to have the ecological systems be that foundation of water security. So that is why we see the protection and restoration of nature as being really critical for ensuring our water security. If our ecosystems, our freshwater ecosystems, are not healthy, they can't provide that foundation for the water security that we need as people, for broader nature, for plants and animals, and in cities and for our economies as well. So ideally, we would have ecosystems that are able to withstand different shocks that they may see related to climate change and other pressures, making sure that those ecosystems can respond as it comes to droughts or too much water. And so when we really want to focus on protecting and restoring those natural environments, which are home to our watersheds, home to our water sources, and can provide that water security over time.
Thank you for highlighting the critical role that healthy ecosystems play in ensuring our water security. Moving forward, what are some of the main challenges and successes you've seen in financing nature-based solutions for water security?
So when we think about nature-based solutions for water security, we are referring to actions that are taken to protect, restore, maintain, or create natural ecosystems. And we think about the water benefits that those can have. Things like improved water quality, a more consistent supply of water, and improved support of freshwater ecosystems as well. So these might be things like wetland restoration or protection, forest restoration, things like that. And so we have seen those being implemented around the world for a number of years, and there are a number of both successes and barriers to increasing financing of those sorts of solutions. Some of the barriers include a lack of understanding and knowledge expertise around these solutions. Many of those in the water sector are used to traditional gray solutions, have, hard engineering backgrounds. And so providing additional training and knowledge to ensure that there are organizations out there that can support nature-based solutions is one barrier to providing additional financing for those. And then in addition, I think there is a barrier around having a concrete evidence base around nature-based solutions. We know that they work. We have a lot of different cases from around the world, but they can really vary in size, in a wide range of geographies, a wide range of habitat types. And so having a lot of case studies available has made it harder to see additional financing come consistently. On the other side, though, we are seeing a number of successes around financing for nature-based solutions for water security, which include just an increase in uptake. We're seeing a lot more projects happen. As I mentioned, there is that evidence base. So over time, more and more institutions, whether those be governments, municipalities, corporations, water utilities, are investing more in nature-based solutions, which is great to see. And then from a financing perspective, we are also seeing additional types of financiers get interested in this sort of work that, as I mentioned, corporations and other private sector entities, but also institutions like development finance institutions who are interested in putting more of these solutions in place alongside broader water management solutions as well.
It's encouraging to hear about the progress. Looking ahead, Nabia, what developments do you hope to see in the next 5 years?
So 5 years from now, I would like to see a lot more investment in nature-based solutions in combination with other solutions, and seeing the multiple benefits that we know these solutions can have starting to be realized. A lot of investment has started to happen. We're seeing many hundreds of projects take place, and the benefits start to yield over time. Those trees start to grow, the wetlands start to produce the benefits that they're seeing. And so hopefully in 5 years, we are seeing the species come back to where they are. We're seeing those consistent supplies of water. We're seeing better water quality. And we're also seeing significant progress having been made towards achievement of the goals that we have from a water perspective, and those sustainable development goals around ensuring water access for all, but also protecting ecosystems, water-related ecosystems, improving water quality and quantity, and then also seeing communities really benefit in an equitable way from the increased resilience that they have as a result of nature-based solutions alongside other solutions that are being put in place. So hopefully 5 years from now, we have water security for all, but we also have stronger ecosystems and equitable communities alongside that.
Thanks, Nabia. Your insights provide a hopeful outlook for the future of our ecosystems and water resources. Now, Diego, Colombia recently developed a water security plan for its central region. Could you share how nature features in this plan?
The water security plan for Colombian central region includes three major components. First, it's a future baseline analysis using an multidimensional water security index proposed for the central region by UNDP Colombia. Second, it includes a prospective analysis supported by ELSA analysis, complemented by approach to water flows scenario according to projected climate change impacts or climate change scenarios. Finally, a strategy framework for action was development, including programs and project ideas. Nature and its ecosystem services related to water supply and regulation are explicitly incorporated into each dimensions of analysis and the components development within the water security plan. The water security index includes the specific dimension to observe the state of nature, considering the condition of forest and the history of deforestation between 1990 and 2016 as a key variable in this analysis. The ELSA analysis guaranteed crucial data to evaluate the state of ecosystem services in greater detail, aiming to identify potential areas for implementing nature-based solutions to optimize decision-making and enhance water security. In the framework of programs and projects, action from both the public and private sector at regional and local levels were proposed to contribute to the conservation, restoration, and sustainable use of nature, and thereby improving water conditions in the central region.
It is fascinating how Colombia has integrated nature into its water security strategies. Why do you believe it's so critical to include nature-based solutions in Colombia's water security plan?
Nature-based solution is a strategy and essential because they provide a conceptual, technical, and political approach that impact in different dimensions. Nature-based solutions not only improve the condition of ecosystem goods and services, but also offer benefits in terms of adaptation and resilience to climate change for ecosystem and communities. Implementing nature-based solutions have benefits and efficiencies in development territorial projects. Even in terms of financing, these activities allow for a more strategic use of investment resources in nature, ensuring greater sustainability and impact, not only on nature, but also improving the capacity to address climate change.
Thanks, Diego. Your response really resonates with our discussions during the first day of the Hub about the power of nature-based solutions. It is clear that this approach is gaining momentum globally. With that in mind, what steps is Colombia taking to ensure there's enough water for the coming century?
Colombia is working at various levels to secure its water resources. Also, some regions are already beginning to face challenge of water scarcity due to increasing demand, poor resources management, and the effects on climate change and climate variability. Important steps are being taken. A significant first step is that the country's development plan has strongly internalized the concept of water management. This is crucial as it promotes an integrated view of productive, economic, social, and environmental aspects to ensure long-term water resources and water security. At the regional level, there is increased focus on issues related to water quality and quantity, with a more communities-oriented approach and private sector involvement. Despite major challenges such as the impact of large cities, climate change, and the need for private sectors to improve water efficiency, the proposal, as outlined in the Water Security Plan, is to place nature and center in a harmony with protect systems, human needs, and climate change to find the best path towards water security.
Thank you, Diego. It is inspiring to hear about the steps being taken to secure Colombia's water future. To our viewers, if you have questions about enhancing water security through nature or would like Nabia or Diego to elaborate on their experiences, feel free to share them in the chat and we'll pass them on. And with that, I'd like to thank both Nabia and Diego for their time and insightful contributions. Back to you, Victoria.
Thank you, Nabi and Diego, for your insights. Your perspectives really highlight the powerful role nature plays in securing our water future. For those of you who joined us yesterday, you had the pleasure of experiencing the incredible talent of Orlando Villarraga. Orlando is a musician and sound artist whose work blends nature-based philosophies with modern sound meditation techniques, creating sonic experiences that connect us deeply with nature. We are thrilled to welcome him back for another performance. Let's take a moment to immerse ourselves in his unique sounds. When we return, we'll dive into the role of nature in advancing gender equality. Stay tuned. Thank you, Orlando, for such a moving performance. Now let's shift our focus to another critical topic: how nature and gender equality are deeply intertwined. Around the world, women play a vital role in environmental stewardship, but they face unique challenges and are often excluded from important decisions about nature. Let's explore this connection further.
Gender equality is essential for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. But around the world, women and girls face inequality, especially when it comes to the environment. Nearly a third of women's employment depends directly on nature through agriculture, forestry, and fisheries. But climate change, environmental loss, and ecosystem degradation disproportionately affect women and girls. It erodes their livelihoods and makes their lives more difficult and more dangerous. Despite producing up to 80% of all food in developing countries, fewer than 1 in 5 landowners worldwide are women. Women are largely responsible for gathering fuelwood, water, and collecting medicines, all at risk from the loss of nature. And women are routinely excluded from decisions on nature that affect their lives. Securing the ecosystems that underpin women's livelihoods can provide women with income, security, and independence. Practicing inclusive environmental governance will ensure that women's voices are heard. And empowering women with land rights, decision-making power, and resources will lead to better outcomes for families, communities, and ecosystems alike. We must recognize the vital role that women can play when it comes to nature. And we must integrate gender into every facet of how we value and plan natural resources. We must support women's leadership in natural resource management and promote sustainable nature-based jobs and livelihoods that benefit women, their families, and their communities. We must invest public and private funds to ensure that women have equal opportunities when it comes to nature-based sectors. Nature can be a catalyst for gender equality. By empowering women and embracing nature-based solutions, we can achieve greater gender equality and sustainable development.
We know how deeply nature and gender equality are connected. We also know that the climate and nature crises hit women, girls, and marginalized communities the hardest, especially in the Global South. Even though they play a key role in protecting the environment, their voices are still left out of the conversation too often. Recently, leaders from around the world gathered to talk about how we could change that. Let's hear some of their voices.
Meaningful participation is not just the numbers, to say that we had this many women, we had this many people from this community, but allowing them to tell their own story, allowing them to describe their own issues and to also prescribe their own solutions.
There is an intricate relationship in between women's rights, women's well-being, and biodiversity conservation.
From our perspective as Indigenous peoples, the biodiversity crisis is very serious. And what we've observed in our communities is that there are many, many different drivers, but climate especially is a really important driver. There's an array of scientific studies and global assessments that have come out that have shown that Indigenous peoples are really good stewards of biodiversity. So when Indigenous peoples have tenure, security over their territories, they are better able to take care of it.
We have adopted something with the Indigenous communities, and now we say nothing for me without me. It's the same battle we are in when we talk about poverty, when we talk about food insecurity, biodiversity loss, and even health issues. It's the same battle.
The inclusion of women and girls to biodiversity decision-making, biodiversity action is relevant and is key because this collective holds a particular knowledge and a particular relationship with nature. What we need now is action.
At the end of the day, we need to make it one conversation. All the sectors will need to sit together and agree. Then we are going to own the solution. We are also going to own the action.
That video showed us how important it is to bring marginalized voices to the table. Now let's travel to Pakistan, where a mangrove nursery initiative led by WWF Pakistan is transforming both the environment and local livelihoods. Babita Blue shares how this project has revitalized the mangroves and helped uplift her community. Let's take a look.
नालो बेबी आहे साइली पटे ते असांजो ॻोठ आहे मीरू दबलो असांजो ॻोठ जेको आहे सो मच्छी जे गुज़र सफ़र करे थो इहा ख़बर कोन हुई त कहिड़ो नस्ल आहे किथां पैदा थिए थी किथां शुरूआत आहे इहा ख़बर असांखे कोन हूंदी हुई असीं पंहिंजा पाण नुक़सान कंदा हुआसीं तमर वढींदा हुआसीं एॾा नुक़सान ॿार खेॾणु वेंदो उहो बि पहिरीं तमर कांटींदो कांटे कांटे खोला कंदो इहे सोच नथे थी त असांजी रोज़ी जेका मिलिया घुरूं उनजो ज़रियो कहिड़ो आहे त काफ़ी साल गुज़रिया त असांजो इलाइक़ो पोइते पियो मच्छीअ जो नस्ल ख़तमु थींदो रहियो सोचे सोचे हिकु असां वटि अदारो आयो पुछियो आहे किसी अदारो आयो त न चए असांखे ॼाण ॾिनी त आई कीअं आयो किथां खां मच्छी आणियो किथां खां उहो किथे विकिणो कीअं उन अदारे असांखे ॼाणूं ॾिनियूं तंहिंखे असां ॿुधायोसीं अदारे जो नालो हुओ WWF वारा पोइ वरी पंहिंजो तिमिर लॻाइणु शुरू कयोसीं असां तिमिर लॻाईसीं तिमिर सां गॾोगॾु वरी नसरी बि लॻाईसीं नसरीअ जी सरबराह आउं आहियां मूं शुरूआति कराई पोइ उनजी सार संभाल हेर पे वियासीं उते हुआसीं मूंसां गॾु ॿियूं पादियूं हुयूं वियासीं उन मां किचिरो कढणु ॿियो हेॾा होॾा पाणी चाढ़णु आहिनि हफ़्ते में 2 चकर पाणी ॾींदा आहियूं त थधो थिए गर्मी जे वजह से पोइ आख़िर उनजूं चकियूं वॾियूं थियूं सारा खाचो खाचो ॿिज थियो त अहिड़ा माण्हू अची सोड़िया असां वटि वठण जे लाइ त हे असांखे ॾियो त असीं ख़रीद करियूं वरी इन ते वरी असीं ॾिसूं त वरी असीं बि अहिड़ा पौधा लॻायूं त रोज़ी बि असांजी इन में वाह खे पिरोके इंसान खे पिन सारो पखी पुखूं जेको ऊप उनमें सारो करे थो हिकु रोज़ी असांखे मच्छी वारी मिली ॿी रोज़ी इन मां शुरू थी त हेरा अलाह जो शुक्र आहे असांजो इलाइक़ो इलाही पुइते पील हुओ हेरा अलाह जो शुक्र आहे ऐं थोरो अॻिते वधी वियो WWF वारनि जी वॾियूं वॾियूं महिरबानियूं जिन असांखे ॼाण ॾिनी असांखे का बि ख़बर कोन हूंदी हुई जॾहिं उन ॼाण ॾिनी तॾहिं असां उन ते गौर कयोसीं त इनशा अलाह फेर असीं पहिरों के साथ वधि में वधायूं
Let's dive deeper into the intersection of gender and nature. Joining us is Reimagining Rai, an expert in gender and biodiversity from Women for Biodiversity. As we listen, let's think about how empowering women in conservation can lead to stronger, more sustainable outcomes for both people and the planet. Reimagining, we're happy to have you here with us. Miguel, over to you.
Hi again, everyone. We've had some great conversations today, and now we're shifting our focus to the critical role nature protection and restoration play in supporting women's livelihoods. Mridalini, it's great to have you with us today. Let's jump right into it, as I'm sure our audience is eager to hear your insights. Why is nature protection and restoration so critical for women's livelihoods?
I believe that the restoration and nature's protection really needs to ensure that there is full and effective participation of women, because there has been a growing research and data available now that when you're looking at the whole of society approach and the roles and contributions that are contributed to a positive outcome of conservation, you'll also see that a large part of that also depends on the contributions and roles of women who play in carrying out restoration and conservation efforts. This I would also like to contextualize in the outcome of the CBD COP15, which in 2022 also approached and advanced the recognition of the vital role of women, which is also linked up with the preamble of the CBD itself. And if you're going to be looking at from our some of our project areas, you will also see how women have really adapted very well to climate change, or you're looking at disasters. And this you can see of how they have, sourced out resilient ways of either working towards restoration of wetlands or restoration of their own gardens for food, for herbs, and also looking at that in the larger context of conservation and restoration efforts in the context of environmental human rights defenders, you also see that a large number of women are also engaged in defending the work around conservation and restoration. So I think it's really very important to really step up our own ambitions to advance around gender equality and women's rights in restoration and conservation initiatives.
It is fascinating to hear how integral women are in these efforts and how their participation shapes positive outcomes in conservation. Building on that, let's talk about women's land rights. How do they play into driving action on nature?
As I shared before, that women's contribution to restoration and conservation really goes a long deal, and their work around natural resource management is also really very crucial. However, though there are case studies, research, it also becomes really very important that without access to your resources, either it's land or natural resources, you tend to lose out on decision-making spaces. Either it is a community level, local level, national level. So I think a core element when you're looking at conservation, restoration, any kind of initiative that talks about environmental justice, and a core element around it is women's right to land and territories and resources. Because without that, we may work very hard in empowering women, but when women themselves do not have their own access to land to decide on what decision has to be taken as part of their self-identification, self-determination, self-development, it really becomes very challenging to assert one rights to any kind of process that should be enabling them to have their voices heard. So I think core to all of this, all the initiatives, land rights is core. And also when we are reflecting on looking at the advancement that we have done, including in the recognition of a right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment, I think once again, a core element is recognition of women's right to land, because without that, once again, you take away their right to continue to sustain or to even contribute to their right to a healthy, clean, and sustainable environment.
That is such a key point. Without access to land, women's ability to influence decisions or contribute to sustainable solutions becomes limited. So, looking ahead, what are your hopes for gender and nature in the coming years?
My hope for nature and gender for the coming year is on a positive note, because there are a lot of advancements looking at gender equality and human rights. And once again, I would like to reiterate the importance of the decision that came out of the CBD, the Convention on Biological Diversity in 2022, which puts a very high agenda to ensure that the biodiversity conservation policies and planning ensures that the whole of society are included. And to also understand that when you're looking at the whole of society approach, you really can't go ahead without ensuring that there is full, meaningful, and effective participation of Indigenous peoples and local communities, youth, women, people with disability, environmental human rights defenders. And this is very important to note, because for the first time ever in an international and global commitment, convention has very concretely put it in its framework. So the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework is guided by a human rights approach, but also by Target 22 and 23 in particular, which Target 22 talks about Indigenous peoples and local communities, and also Target 23, which is on gender equality, to ensure that these two targets complement each other and also complement the full of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. So, of course, as we always say that in the global arena, there are these advancements, there is this growing recognition, but it would be very interesting to see how in a coming month, actually next month, in Cali at COP16, that this ambition will be shared by the parties because they would have to be taken out in the national context. And I'm really hopeful that having put or placed human rights and the rights holders center to the biodiversity conservation, that we have taken a step forward. And I'm really hoping that in the coming years, we will see that this has set a precedent, not only for biodiversity, but also for the other Rio Conventions and the other multilateral environmental agreements, and be on the same pathway to ensure that nature, gender, and rights holders are a core element for a just future.
Thank you, Rinalini. I'm hopeful too that we'll continue seeing these advancements take hold globally. To everyone watching, thank you for being part of this dialogue. Let's keep the discussion going. Feel free to share your thoughts and questions in the chat. Back to you, Victoria.
Thank you, Rinalini, for such thoughtful insights on the vital role of women in conservation. Now let's take a short break to enjoy something unique. We're lucky to have a beautiful performance by Madeleine Monaghan, an Irish-American singer known for her enchanting traditional Irish singing. She'll be performing Saura Saura, a song that celebrates the small wonders of nature in summer. The ancient people of Ireland would sing this on May 1st to welcome the season. Let's sit back and enjoy. When we're back, we'll dive into how nature can help reduce the risk of disasters.
Saura, Saura, banyan hauna, hagmar fein and Saura lin. O Saura buin and on in glegia. Hagmar fein and sorrowlin, Hagmar lin eon gol chrevi, Hagmar fein and sorrowlin, O sorrow bui holy nagre. Hagmar fein and sorrowlin, Babog na biaut na maidin and tauri, Suas gach noch geschis gach liao, O kailini mashakupon galer glegia. Hagmar fein and sorrowlin, Saura, Saura, banyan hauna, Hagmar fein and sorrowlin, O Saura buin and on in glegia, Hagmar fein and sorrowlin, Hagmar fein and sorrowlin.
We are back. I hope you enjoyed that beautiful performance by Madeline Monaghan. Now, let's dive into how nature helps protect us from natural disasters. Here's a quick video that shows how nature can keep us safe and build a more resilient world.
Natural disasters are increasing in frequency and intensity around the world. Nature can reduce our risks to these disasters and can foster a more resilient planet. In the past 20 years, the number of disasters has doubled, affecting more than 4 billion people and costing trillions of dollars. Many of these disasters are made worse by the way we manage nature. We have lost half of our mangroves and forests and 2/3 of our wetlands, ecosystems that are essential for mitigating natural disasters. As the result of deforestation and land clearing, we are more susceptible to storms, floods, drought, and fire. Healthy ecosystems buffer humanity from natural disasters. Wetlands act as sponges, reducing flood damages and improving water security during times of drought. Mangroves, seagrass beds, and coral reefs protect coastal cities from storm surges. Forests help regulate regional and even continental water cycles, ensuring rain for crops. We must change the way we think about nature. We must value its role as our biggest ally in reducing risks to natural disasters. We must protect the ecosystems that protect us, and we must restore degraded ecosystems so that they can continue to protect us into the future. We must account for the value of nature in our financial and economic frameworks. It is far cheaper to protect and restore nature than it is to rebuild infrastructure. We must finance nature-based solutions for disaster risk reduction, including through payments for ecosystem services. By integrating nature-based solutions into our disaster risk strategies, we can protect lives and build resilient communities. Nature is our strongest defense against disasters.
Now that we've seen how nature helps reduce disaster risks, let's travel to Indonesia to see how local communities are taking action to protect their coastal waters. We'll meet local leaders Harrison Ramadan, whose inspiring work offers hope to the millions of people whose lives are tied to the sea.
When I was a child, I played on the most beautiful beach in the world. Like we did for the generation, my family fished to eat, and it was plentiful and good alive. Saya kecil dulu tinggal di Kaledupa. Saya lebih banyak tumbuh dan besar bersama nenek saya. Hampir setiap air turun, nenek saya itu selalu mengajak saya, ayo kita ke laut cari kerang-kerangan atau lobster atau ikan yang bisa untuk makan kita, memenuhi kebutuhan makan kita. Kami makan dari hasil laut dan hasil kebun dari nenek saya. Ternyata hasilnya itu tidak cukup. Bahkan populasi ikannya itu sudah sangat menurun. Ayah saya memutuskan ikut bersama om saya di Malaysia untuk bekerja di kapal perusahaan. Setelah tumbuh 18 tahun, saya itu pergi kuliah di Kendari, mengambil jurusan perikanan, dan mungkin ini kesempatan saya untuk memberikan kontribusi bagaimana mengelola laut. Saya berkunjung ke Pasikolaga dan bertemu dengan para Ramadan di sini, ingin mendengar dari masyarakat permasalahan perikanan apa sebenarnya terjadi di Pasikolaga.
Di proses awal tantangannya cukup banyak, mulai dari bom ikan, bius ikan, dan segala macam. Akan tetapi itu kami coba semacam selesaikan dengan kepala dingin. Kami ketemu para kepala desa, pemerintah kecamatan, kemudian tokoh adat, tokoh agama, tokoh masyarakatnya, pemudanya.
Di mana mereka itu sebenarnya tahu permasalahan perikanan kita. Pak Ramadan dan saya berkesimpulan bahwa mari kita cari titik tengahnya. Itu kita bisa lakukan bekerja di daerah. Walaupun mungkin belum kita samai dengan yang 18 tahun 20 itu, tapi ada progres yang terjadi. Semua orang sebenarnya harus paham, bukan hanya di sini kan. Karena memang perubahan iklim itu terjadi secara global, menyeluruh, tidak hanya di Indonesia, bahkan di negara-negara maju pun kan krisis. Nah, itu yang kita coba berkontribusi juga, bukan hanya untuk di Indonesia, tetapi secara global kontribusi kita.
Now let's dig deeper into the role of nature in preventing natural disasters. We have Enrique Paniagua from the United Nations Development Program with us to share why protecting ecosystems is key to reducing risks and building resilience. Enrique, welcome. Miguel, take it away.
Hello everyone. We have Enrique with us to share his insights on the essential role nature plays in preventing natural disasters. Remember, as we grow through the conversation, feel free to type your questions in the chat, and I'll be sure to pass them along to Enrique. So, Enrique, let's dive right in. Why is nature essential for preventing natural disasters?
To address this question, we first need to understand what is a disaster. We commonly talk about natural disasters, but actually disasters don't occur just naturally. It is a combination between a natural phenomenon and human vulnerabilities what trigger disasters. Disasters are serious disruptions to the functioning of a community that exceed its capacity to cope using its own resources. And in this last part, we have the first clue of why nature is crucial for addressing risks. Ecosystem services provide crucial resources like clean water, clean air, healthy soils. So if a community has basic ecosystem services secure, it means that it has better resources to cope with disruptions that might signify a disaster. That's why we talk about nature-based solutions, because nature is providing solutions to cope with risks or hazards.
That's a great explanation, Enrique. It really illustrates how the interplay between nature and human systems is vital for community resilience. What types of hazards or risks are you referring to?
So we also have different types of hazards or risks that can produce a disaster. We have climate-related hazards like floods or droughts, but we also have biological hazards like viruses. And what comes to our mind when we talk about viruses? Yes, COVID-19, that disruption created by this virus has no comparison in history. And why is it crucial to bring nature-based solutions to cope with biological hazards? Well, because if we protect species, ecosystems to decrease risks of virus transferring to humans, then we will have a better management of this type of hazards.
That makes complete sense. By preserving biodiversity, we can mitigate threats not only from natural disasters, but also from emerging biological risks. Now, as we discuss these hazards, what are the key elements that determine a community's risk level?
Then hazards have three basic elements: vulnerability, exposure, and capacity. So how vulnerable a community is to climate-related risks, for example, then how exposed this community is. Is it in the coast where all the hurricanes are coming from, or is it next to a river that can wash the entire area? And the capacity, the coping and adaptive capacity. This last element, the capacity, helps in addressing the vulnerabilities and the exposure that a community might have to a certain hazard. And then ecosystem services and nature-based solutions are crucial to all of these elements: vulnerability, exposure, and capacity. It can increase the capacity of a community to cope with the hazards. It can decrease the vulnerability, and it can decrease the exposure. And that's why nature is crucial to reducing risks.
That's a comprehensive breakdown of how these elements work together. Your explanation clearly shows the essential role that ecosystems play in enhancing resilience. Now, let's shift the focus a bit. You work on Costa Rica's National Adaptation Plan. How did that plan include nature for disaster prevention?
Well, in the case of Costa Rica, we have the Climate Adaptation National Policy, which is the instrument that sets the tone to develop climate adaptation action plans. So when we developed the action plan, we took into consideration the policy, and the policy recognizes the importance of nature and ecosystem services for climate adaptation and reducing climate-related risks. The objective 3 of the policy and of the action plan is related to managing biodiversity, ecosystem, watersheds, and marine coastal spaces for the adaptation and well-being of local communities.
How do you ensure that the voices and needs of these communities are actively included in the development and implementation of these climate adaptation action plans?
We also perform different exercises to understand the risks that the economy in Costa Rica is facing and that the communities are facing. And we took into consideration 6 sectors: tourism, agriculture, water, health, biodiversity, and infrastructure. And all of them present risks that can be tackled through NBS, or at least that NBS, nature-based solutions, can provide help to address these risks. So we ended up including 30 actions to address the challenge of ensuring a good management of ecosystems to reduce climate-related risks. Some examples are the climate refugia for vulnerable species. So it's basically creating a biological corridor from low areas to high areas so that the species can migrate if they need to do so because of the change in temperatures and rain. We also added protection of forests for water resources and restoring mangroves to reduce coastal exposure.
That's an insightful response, Enrique. Your explanation sheds light on the importance of understanding the risks that different sectors face and how nature-based solutions can address these challenges. Thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights today. It is clear that understanding and managing the relationship between nature and climate is essential for disaster prevention and overall resilience. And a big thank you to our viewers. Your participation is vital in these important discussions. Remember to keep your questions coming, and let's continue to explore how we can all contribute to creating a nature-positive future for our communities and ecosystems.
Thank you, Enrique, for sharing your insights. Before we go on to discuss how nature contributes to peace, we have a captivating experience with Sarah Craning, an abstract artist with synesthesia, a rare trait that allows her to perceive sound as color, texture, and motion. Watch as she paints the shifting sounds of wildlife during the solar eclipse, a truly fascinating fusion of art and nature.
My name is Sarah Craning, and I'm here with Rewild. I'm an artist with sound to color synesthesia, and I'm here to paint the sounds of nature reacting to the eclipse. So at the start of the painting, there were just some really gentle bird calls, and that's sort of this rhythm texture. And then as the eclipse started to progress, the bird calls got a little bit more frantic. I just didn't realize how loud it was going to get at the end. I didn't really know what to expect. This is totality here, so it actually got like really, really quiet, and there was just like little bugs making noise, and then there was this explosion as it was coming out of totality, which I wasn't really expecting. It was a surprise.
We're back. That was an incredible performance by Sarah, truly mesmerizing. Let's shift our attention to the connection between nature and peace. Healthy ecosystems not only sustain life, they can also help foster stability and harmony within communities. Let's dive into the concept of nature for peace, exploring how protecting and restoring natural areas can actually support peace-building efforts. While you watch, think about how nature can help bring people together in your community, and share your reflections in the chat.
Peace and stability are essential for sustainable development. Nature can play a key role in fostering peace and reducing conflicts. National and regional stability rests on healthy ecosystems. About 40% of all conflicts in the last half-century were linked to conflicts over natural resources, especially land and water. By 2030, more than 2 billion people will be living in countries with water scarcity, increasing conflicts. Climate change and nature loss will further push an additional 100 million people into poverty by 2030, further undermining social stability and peace. Healthy ecosystems increase water security, providing peace and stability during times of drought. They buffer the worst impacts of climate change, reducing the risk of displacement and conflict. Healthy ecosystems support billions of livelihoods, fostering well-being and prosperity. It's time for a reset on peace and nature. We must start by better understanding how the loss of nature erodes peace and accelerates conflict around the world. We must prioritize the protection and restoration of ecosystems that maintain the essential services that prevent conflict, especially those ecosystems that strengthen water security. We can also accelerate the creation of peace parks to encourage peace and stability between countries. We must treat public and private finance in nature as an investment in national and regional peace and security. Nature is a powerful ally in fostering peace. It is time to make peace with nature.
Now that we've explored the powerful link between nature and peace, let's turn to a real-world example that brings this concept to life. The Selwyn Peace Park is a remarkable initiative that shows how protecting natural landscapes can unite communities and foster peace in areas affected by conflict. Let's take a look.
Patuli podere pa hako kapi amopa pipu hako pila wati pesha rekle tiwene tatini weda la aklebe weda hako tamuto wala rido khosim la ya ka kone we metale mile po khuluta mita kure ne ale tho weda ye ka tholi ya square kilometer rido khale pama ne ale mitni nyai ne la no.
The Karen people, like many other indigenous communities, they see themselves as part of the natural world around them. And they firmly believe that the health of the environment directly corresponds to their own health and prosperity. In the Solin Peace Park, people's participation and representation are specifically provided in decision making. Also, community rights are strongly recognized at the heart of the Solin Peace Park Charter, and gender equality is strongly integrated.
Kolota mita kukura ne me hokwa de kale pa paganyo pulle ole hokwa pu kudone ba athaweda tasinyo pela ta khweya do tamita khu amia to dokhi khara khane me weda ta dot de pe kha ke kukanis do akate de khane me weda le kunyo patuli phote ba alla thutanu kase umu wasunya yuka awa awene me ta pu.
With these three pillars, the idea is to turn the battlefield into a peaceful and harmonious refuge for life in the Solin Peace Park.
Kulota mita kugure we no yu tho we da tiko ta sotale ta te du me we da tiko no pa udata soda ko mo udata sinya sete ta te pa ti te nya do we te nya pa pa no we da pa thuli po ta kweta ya le awete umule hok ko ko pi le mo pa pi pi ni ta o ku do ta do ta de ge we da ku ko ni se a khwe ya de pa u tho de su ne pana le ko bi yo bu ne ta tamita khu a me to de ba no ti de ba ge u tho we.
Let's continue the conversation about nature and peace with an expert who has deep insights into this topic. We're joined by David Jensen from the United Nations Environment Program. He'll share his thoughts on how natural resources can be both a source of conflict and a foundation for peace building. David, it's great to have you here with us. Miguel, over to you.
Thank you, Victoria. Welcome back, everyone. David, thank you for joining us. To start, could you tell us why natural resources are so crucial for peace-building efforts?
Natural resources are really important for peace-building efforts for a number of reasons. I think, first and foremost, in many cases, they are the foundation for livelihoods, right? And so, I mean, one of the key priorities in peace building is regeneration of livelihoods, recovery, restoration of livelihoods. And in many cases, natural resources are a foundation for those livelihoods, especially in rural areas. So for that reason, they're fundamental. Second reason is that in many cases, multiple communities rely on the same natural resources for those livelihoods. So there's a shared dependence or a mutual dependence on natural resources such as water, for example, or forests. And that mutual dependence can actually be a basis for confidence building between those communities. So they can be used as a platform for bringing communities together and rebuilding confidence, rebuilding social fabric. They can also be used to bring communities and governments back together, right? So they could be used as the basis for trust building between communities and local levels of government and higher levels of governance as well. I think a third reason is, in many cases, they represent important sources of natural wealth, in particular extractive resources such as minerals and metals or forests. They represent wealth that can be extracted and converted into other forms of capital. And I think finally, they're really important as for peace building because they're often a source of conflict, right? Different communities actually fight very much over scarce natural resources. And so we need to take into account those conflict dynamics in order to build more resilient and more sustainable peace. I think for all those reasons, there's a really strong case that natural resources need to be a fundamental component of peace building efforts.
That's a helpful explanation of how natural resources serve as both a foundation for livelihoods and a medium for building trust and cooperation. With the ongoing loss of nature, how do you see these impacting peace and security globally?
Well, the loss of nature and the damage and degradation to nature affects peace and security in a number of ways. I think that the first way is really nature provides a number of ecosystem services that help reduce disaster vulnerability to local communities, and they help really reduce the impact of shocks and stresses on those communities, right? So I think those ecosystem services are fundamental, and when they are damaged, communities become more vulnerable to disasters and to shocks and stresses. So they're less able to cope, and there's therefore more vulnerability to those kinds of events. I think second point, which is really important, is of course, when you lose nature, when you lose natural resources, you lose the livelihoods as well that depend on those natural resources. And whether that's forestry or whether that's agriculture or other natural resources that are driving livelihoods, there's this fundamental connection between sustainable livelihoods and natural resource quality. And when those resources are damaged, degraded, the livelihoods are affected. And when those livelihoods are affected, people then have to choose other survival mechanisms, right? And those can be legal activities, but they can also be illegal activities. And we see in many cases where livelihoods are destroyed, people begin to move into the illegal sector, and they can move into resource theft, they can move into trafficking of drugs and trafficking of people. There's all kinds of knock-on effects when you've lost your livelihood. So ensuring that natural resources are protected and restored and they support sustainable livelihoods is a fundamental connection that has to happen in peace building. So the third reason is that when natural resources become more and more scarce, there's more and more reason to fight over what's left, right? So natural resources themselves can become a driver of local level conflict between communities. And that's fundamentally important in terms of conflict prevention and peace building. You have to understand what those communities are fighting over and how natural resource scarcity plays into that.
It seems the scarcity and degradation of natural resources can escalate conflicts and complicate peace efforts. Looking forward, David, what are your hopes in the context of peace and nature?
So my hopes for the next few years when it comes to peace and nature, I think are maybe threefold. First of all, I would love to see more peace agreements reflect natural resource provisions where those natural resources are a source of conflict or an opportunity for peace building. So what you see in some agreements is a very strong inclusion of natural resource risks and opportunities, and in others you don't see it very often. And I'd love to see sort of more peace agreements reflect those risks and opportunities very specifically in the peace agreement and in the governance arrangements around the peace building process. That would be number one. I'd say that similarly, where natural resources have been directly degraded or damaged during a conflict, I'd like to see more investment going into restoration and recovery. As I said, because they're so important for livelihoods, those resources really must be restored as part of the peace process. And the third hope I have is to begin to use technology more systematically to really monitor where those resources are being degraded during a conflict, to monitor how livelihoods are being affected, to monitor how human health is being affected, and then to basically prioritize where those resources need to be recovered and restored as part of the peace process. And I think artificial intelligence offers a huge opportunity to do that much more systematically than we've ever done in the past. And maybe as well, I would say, using tools like artificial intelligence and machine learning to identify where resources are being illegally extracted during a conflict and perhaps used for conflict financing. I think that's a big opportunity there to begin monitoring illegal activity and to begin monitoring, where those natural resources are actually financing conflict and financing militias. And then, how can we get local authorities to take more action in those places where they're being stolen? So I see that happening in conflict after conflict. And I know the amount of resource theft is extremely high. It's in the billions of dollars. So whatever we can do to reduce that and to make sure those natural resources benefit, all communities in those countries would be fantastic.
Thank you, David, for shedding light on this crucial issue. To our viewers, please share your questions or thoughts in the chat. Your engagement helps us deepen our understanding of these complex issues.
Thank you, David, for those powerful insights on nature and peace. Now, let's dive into our final segment, how nature drives prosperity. Throughout this event, many of our speakers have highlighted that healthy ecosystems are the backbone of livelihoods and economic growth worldwide. Let's explore how investing in nature can boost prosperity for everyone. While you watch, think about how nature impacts your own community and share your thoughts in the chat.
Prosperity and sustainable development are deeply intertwined with nature. Healthy ecosystems provide the essential services that underpin human well-being. Nearly 700 million people live in extreme poverty, and more than half the planet lives on less than $10 a day. At the same time, about 3 billion people depend directly on nature for their livelihoods through agriculture, forestry, and fisheries. Nature also serves as a safety net for billions of people, directly providing food and medicine for 3 out of 5 families around the world. But eroded natural capital, deforested landscapes, depleted soils, loss of pollinators, polluted waters, overfished waterways, endanger livelihoods and remove this safety net. Healthy ecosystems underpin robust livelihoods and strong safety nets for billions of people. Nature must be part of any plan to improve economic well-being and prosperity. Investing in ecosystems is an effective and cost-effective way to ensure prosperity around the globe. Restoring ecosystems can yield a return of more than 20 to 1, primarily benefiting the poorest and most vulnerable. It is time to change how we value nature. We must start by changing how we think about the relationship between nature and prosperity. If we want to tackle poverty and improve the well-being of billions, we must start by improving the health of ecosystems. We must protect and restore the ecosystems that underpin sustainable livelihoods. We must pivot toward regenerative management practices that prioritize long-term human well-being over short-term economic gain. We must finance sustainable nature-based livelihoods, including nature-based enterprises. It is time to rethink prosperity. It is time to invest in nature. Nature is the foundation of our economic future. By valuing and investing in nature, we can achieve sustainable and just prosperity for all.
You've heard how nature and livelihoods are closely linked. Let's explore a powerful real-world example. Cameroon Gender and Environment Watch is showing how restoring forests and empowering communities, especially women, can create sustainable livelihoods while protecting the environment. Let's take a closer look at how they're making a difference.
We were trying to look at the major problems that we saw, and that was poverty, unemployment, gender inequality. Also ignorance of the opportunities that were existing. How do we blend the problems that we are facing in the forest, which is a resource, the poverty which exists, and the unemployment?
We came up with the idea of bee farming because we saw that bee farming will get the whole community involved, as they will keep their hives in the forest. And with the hives in the forest, they will harvest honey. Honey equals money. The community saw that it is important to conserve the forest. We have planted about 75,000 trees as of 2018. We have trained over 2,000 people in the Kilum-Ijin forest area in bee farming. When we recruit bee farmers, that's a chance to rebalance opportunities. We give 2 beehives to women and 1 to men. We also teach them about honey production, beeswax extraction, making honey wine and honey juice, and making detergents and lotions out of beeswax. When they turn their hives, the community keeps an eye out for bushfires. And the income from bee farming means they can plant more trees. It's a powerful equation. Honey equals income, equals jobs, equals gender equality, equals conservation.
To further unpack the meaning of prosperity in a nature-positive world, we're excited to speak with Susan Hu from the World Economic Forum. A warm welcome to the Hub, Susan. Miguel, take it away.
Thanks, Victoria. It's great to be here with you, Susan, to discuss a topic that's vital to our future: prosperity in a nature-positive world. Susan, can you start by defining what prosperity means in this context?
Actually, there is some published forum insights on prosperity already. For example, the Future of Nature and Business Policy Companion report describes that prosperity as a scenario where an economic future are stronger, risks of economic scarring are reduced, and there is a deep interdependence between nature and the economy. Other than that, the Nature Positive Guidelines for the Transition in Cities report also highlights that prosperity as transforming cities into hubs of nature stewardship, where both humans and nature thrive, fostering inclusive growth and shared prosperity. With this, prosperity in the nature-positive world could be defined through various lenses. Imagine that we are delineating a painting on prosperity. There should be elements of economic opportunities, job creation, and a healthier environment for all, not only for us, but also the health of the planet. With that, I should say for prosperity, the being in harmony with nature should be at the core.
It is fascinating to consider prosperity through the lens of harmony with nature. Moving on, land use plays a crucial role in shaping this future. Could you elaborate on why land use is so pivotal for a nature-positive future?
So firstly, land use is very important in achieving a nature-positive future due to its direct impact in ecosystems and biodiversity. Many reports have emphasized that unsustainable land use practices, such as current farming, fishing, and renting, undermine long-term economy and prosperity and expose humanity to risks. Secondly, land use and management deeply impact the economy, and especially the livelihood of local communities. The forum's report in the New Nature Economy Report series, The Future of Nature and Business, identified 3 key socioeconomic systems, the transition of which could fundamentally reduce negative impact to nature while creating new business opportunities and jobs. The first system is food, land, and ocean use systems, which endangered 72% of the threatened and near-threatened species, while implementing nature-positive transitions could generate $3.6 trillion of annual business opportunities and close to 200 million jobs by 2030. From our latest work on sector transition to nature positive, we found that one of the most material impacts across sectors are land use related, including those we can come up with immediately, such as agriculture and food, mining and metals, as well as those significant GDP contributors, such as personal care and household products, cement and concrete, and automotives, thirdly, through their value chain. Last but not the least, very often land use and management is closely linked with freshwater use and ocean use. Ideally, these topics should be tackled from a holistic view and based on a more systematic assessment, rather than in silos, to make sure that our investment and approaches are not helping one challenge while negatively impacting another one.
Understanding the critical link between sustainable land use and economic sustainability illuminates just how interconnected our ecological and economic systems are. Lastly, Susan, what steps do you believe are crucial for the world to take towards achieving a nature-positive future?
The steps required for a nature-positive future are multifaceted and involve significant shifts in policy, economic practices, and societal engagements. For economic actors, especially business and financial institutions, to have a more science-based evaluation of impact and dependencies on nature and biodiversity along the effort in climate would be really critical now. So based on the assessment, certain economic actors could take actions such as protecting and restoring natural capital, enhancing resource productivity, and scaling regenerative value chains, investing in green urban infrastructure and large-scale ecosystem protection, transitioning to regenerative agriculture and forest management practices, implementing systematic socioeconomic transitions to align with planetary boundaries, and mobilizing financial resources and innovative mechanisms to support nature-positive initiatives. I've heard from many companies that nature and biodiversity topic is too complicated. Indeed, it's complicated, but it doesn't mean that we can do nothing now. Our business could start from identifying a few negative impacts from their either direct operations or value chain and start to reduce those negative impact as a very critical start.
Thank you, Susan. Your insights highlight the multifaceted approach needed to embrace a nature-positive future effectively. And to everyone watching, please keep your questions coming in the chat. Your engagement helps enrich our discussion and understanding of these complex issues. Victoria, back to you.
Thank you, Miguel, and thank you, Susan, for sharing your perspective with us today. We have come to the end of this incredible day. We are excited to leave you with the special performance by A.Y. Young. His song is a powerful reminder of the responsibility we all share to unite for a brighter, more sustainable future. We hope today's event has left you inspired and energized. The conversations we've had today are just the beginning. Now it's up to all of us to carry that energy forward. Keep the conversation alive, connect with each other, explore the resources we've shared, and invite your friends to join the Nature for Life movement. Together, we're building a community that can create real change. Let's continue to stand up for nature, for our planet, and for future generations.
Come together now. Oh, we've got to. Hey, oh, sister, mister, look who's made our minds up. And now I can't find the reasons not to give up. Beaches, leaders, dreamers, let's go. They always take the right away. Read the bell and let you there. We can change the world. Is that a lie they told us? We can change the world. Let's shine a light back on us. We can change the world. Yeah. But we got to come together now. We got to come together now. Hey, see, I don't like it anymore than you do. But in they ignorance, that bliss is for. So it's about time, be humble and realize that we are one and the same, unique and one of a kind. Cause by the days come ahead when we join together, push your best foot forward, go and make an effort. This is AY, I spoke to Akon, Marvin Gaye, we in the grapevine. Let's have a great time. Influence great mind, I'm trying to paint my version of Picasso. This is colossal, so they always take the right away. Ring the bell and let me say, we can change the world. Sing it out right now, hear me talking. We can change the world. Black rock, sing it out, everybody say, we can change the world. We got to come together now. We got to come together now. Through the wind and stormy weather. Oh, we've got to come together.